Okay, time for another drawing video. So today I'm just going to kind of discuss this in an improvisational manner, so bear with me. And it's a kind of quiet Saturday afternoon here in Toronto, and I got inspired again. Just started kind of drawing, tried to get off my phone. Ironically, I'm back on my phone using this phone as a tool. But I started sketching around, and it reminded me of something I've been meaning to do for a long, long time, which is play around and demonstrate a very cool, simple method of playing around with poses. And I keep using the word playing because I'm a very big proponent that you should play. If you want to learn, you've got to go back into playing mode, which is what kids do. Kids are forced to learn, young people, because you're new in this world and you got a whole ton to catch up on. Unfortunately, you get older and you kind of stop that. But I started playing around with cutouts, and it's part of a concerted effort to get back in what people, funnily enough, call the meat world, away from digital. So you can really learn a lot without being fancy. And here I want to talk about posing mostly, and silhouettes and symbols. I got my really basic Dollarama index cards, okay? Nothing fancy. These ones are ruled with white on the back, which I mistakenly bought, but the best ones probably are blank on both sides. But anyway, the point is that they're simple card. You can just sketch on them and not worry about them. So what I started doing was playing around with cutouts, because when you cut stuff out, you're forced to think about the silhouettes, and you'll see in a minute when I show you, I've made a whole bunch of little figures underneath here, well, elements of figures. But first I'm going to say something simple about silhouettes, and I'm going to make more videos. There's just too many videos to make because each of these things kind of branches and connects to other things. But here, if I showed you this, right, look. I don't know if you can see that clearly, people, but it's just kind of a blob, right? You can sort of maybe assume what that is. And the point is about recognition, right? You don't really know what that is. Whereas, I'm going to zoom in a bit here. Whereas if I show you this, the comics fans will instantly see, hey, that's a classic Jack Kirby hand, you know, that splayed fingers that Kirby was famous for doing, among other things. But see, so the silhouette alone here on this one is enough that you can figure it out because it's got the structural elements like 4 fingers and a thumb. Whereas here, what this is actually is a fist, or it's like a semi-closed fist. And now with lines aiding you, you can kind of figure that out. But that's an observation I'm just making at the beginning here, that the silhouette is really, 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 really important. You can't overemphasize how important that is in drawing and in understanding what you're doing with the silhouettes. In fact, it should be the first thing that you think about drawing when you're composing bigger compositions of elements like different figures on a cover or what have you. So here, of course, this is even helped by having these lines. And here, this blob is certainly helped because here it's just a blob when I just darkened it in with a marker, you know, I just took my big chunky marker and darkened in the backs of these. But when you've got the lines, your brain can decode it and say, oh, that's like a, you know, like a hand in some kind of semi-closed position, like maybe they're about to grab something. So that's one first idea. And let me zoom back again, whoops. iPhone mechanics here. There we go. Okay, so that's one first idea, just to always remember about silhouettes. And like I said, I'm going to make more videos about this, but I started playing around with these index cards, and I started getting this idea, which I had done in drawings in my old sketchbooks, but not thought of doing this way. So what I did here is I've just got this black sketchbook. That doesn't matter. That's just for a background. I'm going to zoom in again, and I'll explain what I'm doing here, which is I've got here's my offstage over here. These are all the actors waiting in the wings. And here I've got this kind of character. The character doesn't matter. I just made that up randomly a few minutes ago. I sketched them out on these index cards, like I said, inked it in quickly with a black marker. Doesn't even matter the marker, but for whatever, I'll say it anyway. It's some kind of Tombow marker I just bought at the art store yesterday in one of my walks, and markered it in here, and then quickly just cut them out. I mean, index cards, you can have great fun. Get your old basic scissors and go around. And there's a whole art of silhouette cutting, which younger people may not be aware of, but it's probably, and I know it's still practiced, you can probably even find Instagram accounts that still do it. And they cut silhouettes usually out of darker paper against white, but you could probably do it either way. You know, it's just amazing for learning. That's just not finished, but I'm just showing you what I'm doing. It's amazing for learning posing. And what I'm going to get into here is posing tips or experimentation, because I used the word playing. Experimentation, which is probably exactly what I would assume stop motion puppet people do. You know, at the film companies that make those amazing stop motion puppets, they have to learn about symbols and motion and placements of things. So my strong recommendation here is, and what I'm going to show you is, do something like this and learn how to be a kid again and play around with variations. And what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and teach yourself stuff. Don't just take things in books and copy formulas. Unfortunately, that's what we all do, much too much. And you have to kind of get past that. You have to learn how to learn. You have to learn how to become your own teacher. In other words, be the student and the teacher yourself. It's something I'm going to probably repeat over and over again, because end of day, no matter how much money you pay or what fancy school you go to, whether online or in the real world or college or whatever, you're still sitting in a room listening to something. But inside the world of your own mind, you have to prove it to yourself and understand for yourself and make it a permanent part of yourself. If you don't do that, you don't learn. And I know that some people might think, oh, this is all too theoretical and philosophical and stuff. But fact is, no matter where you go with this stuff, you are going to have opinions, and you're going to have a set of techniques and ways of doing things, which you're going to have no matter what you do. Like, you can't avoid it. And you'll either absorb new things and absorb craft knowledge and try and retain it and employ it in your drawings, or you don't. Like, you really just can't get around it. But unfortunately, what I think happens is people read books like, and again, it's not a slag against, like, say, the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, but they just give you an ABC formula. You know, draw a circle and draw some crosshairs, and then this. And then what people tend to do is either they copy a very simple formula, or they copy even the end results. Like, I draw an eye like this, you know, a head like this, hands like this. And you learn a set of rigid formulas of fixed lines on paper. You don't really learn fluid thinking. What I'm trying to push towards here, and I'm going to get to this, is to rubberize your thinking. Because really then what you can do when you're sketching stuff out is be fluid and not be precious about the way you do stuff. Because that's really the great danger. You just get really rigid and you don't see other solutions. It all comes down to different choices and what you could even call choice pathways. I'm going to try and show that here. So we always think about fancy drawings. What I'm going to try and demonstrate here is you don't need fancy drawings. You need to think about placements, alignments, and symbols. So here, again, this is just a random guy I made up. Doesn't matter. Could be anything. But here he's kind of scowling, kind of looking at the camera. Now I've got over here, waiting in the wings, all these various hands. And I think the first two I made were like fists, like, right? And I'll use these. So if you just, I'm going to put these guys off stage here by doing this. You guys are booted to behind the curtains. That's why we have curtains on the side of the stage. You don't want to be looking there. All right, here's our little stage. Now we've got a guy with his hands. He looks like he's ready for a fight, doesn't he? I mean, you kind of recognize that. Symbols, closed fists, and guy. Now, what I'm trying to show here is you don't even need the rest of the drawing to get expression, right? It's about placements. And again, any animator would understand this right away. But I'm aiming more at like students or people who haven't thought of it this way. You see how when I change the positions, the meaning changes, because, you know, like say here, it's like he's got his hands lowered. So it's not as much of a threat. But if he puts them up here, he's like, put up your dukes, I'm ready to fight. And then I think there's things like angles. Like this could be like, I don't know what that means exactly. And what that gets into actually is that not everything has a meaning. What you discover is that some placements and positionings have more resonance as symbols. And resonance means that you can identify them as meaning something, which is what you want as a cartoonist. This is all aimed at cartooning and comics book type artists. You want when people look at your fixed drawings, because it's not animation, it's not moving. And even animation moves from pose to pose, where they want key poses to register. But you have to think about it as a comic book artist, since you've got frozen panels. What are my elements and symbols that will resonate with the audience, that will register as something specific, not as vague? So there's endless variations I'm trying to show you. So here, this looks like a guy going like, okay, I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna fight you. Or here he's like got his hands over to the sides, maybe lower. And what I'm also going to show here is that even if you do think about filling in the drawings, which this is a great way to develop drawings, there's a range of believability. So if I put his hands here, you know, they're too far away from his head, right? There's nobody that's got arms that long. So you have to think about ranges of motions. But you could even take this stuff and, where's my pencil? You could use your own little cutouts like this to practice drawings. Because what you find is that actually often you might draw from here and then draw out down to the hands. But what can work really well is if you just draw these elements first, and then you can work the rest of the body in, like get a shoulder line, and then say, okay, he's got his neck kind of pitched forward here. And maybe his body's kind of curving. And then, you know, where am I going to have this hand? Like down here, lower. When I look at this now, his hands look a tiny bit big. But anyway, I won't stress about that. So, you know, now you've got his hands. And all you have to do is try and believably connect. Yeah, I'm not really worried here about fancy drawing, but you see what I'm saying is you want to just believably connect stuff. And if you exceed the range of possibility, then you suddenly realize, okay, that doesn't look good. So I'm going to go back to what I was talking about poses, though. That was just a suggestion. You can also use these cutouts for this kind of process. And let me put my guys back over here. So say we want a different set of hands. Okay, I have the fists. Where'd that other fist go? I think I lost it in the process. Oh, no, it's here. Okay, let's put these off stage. We're done with you for now. But say even with this face, you know, you could have, actually, we're not done. We're going to bring this guy back. You see here we have a contrast. They're not both closed fists. There's one like that's closed, but this one's maybe conciliatory. He's open. And is he like, okay, maybe he's negotiating a bit. He's like, you see how it's turned there? Ignore this. Ignore the man behind the curtain. See how this is turned? He's kind of like, well, you know, and he gets into symbols of body language, what people understand as meaning. And, you know, here he's like, I don't know what he's doing. Is that threatening? And, well, let's bring in a different symbol. You gotta find, I'm trying to find places where it looks believable. And let's try this one. See, he's like, maybe he's negotiating or talking. Hand acting is very important. So when I'm talking about trying to get combined expression, that's what I'm doing, is just playing around. And when you play around like this, you can really just stumble across and force yourself into new realizations, things that you wouldn't draw if you normally did your habitual thing where you just draw stuff exactly the same way as you always do. Here I'm just kind of playing, and I might suddenly suggest new ideas for poses. Let's try the different faces. Now this one, same hands, but now we've got happy kind of surprised goofy guy. And he's like, well, you know, no, enough. And you get into proximity, see, like how close or how far away has a different meaning, right? If you put your hand up close, it's like, haha, far away. And then angle too, right? Like that's a bit more compromising, like, well, you know, you're staving off somebody almost, like, hey, stand back, or I'll give you that, it could be. And then it's like reacting back, angle, versus like forward, you know, or hands under. Let's see what happens when you put a fist with this. He's got his hands together. Or here we're going to have a pointer hand. He's pointing up. It's like, well, let me just interject. Or he's like, yeah, you got a point there, dude. You know, there's a lot of acting that you can figure out just with these simple means. And I by no means have made all. I could make a lot more cutouts. I did make a third one here where I got dejected guy, whatever his name is. He's like, maybe he's frustrated. Let's see what happens if I put his fists above his head. See how he's frustrated? And he's like, oh, darn, like that just is not working out. Or he's got his hands down in resignation. Maybe we tilt his head this way and we show that he's like just really not weeping, but he's like about to maybe. And see, the symbol I used on his eye there, it's just the eyelid. You can't even see his eyeball. And his head's going away down from us. So that gives you more of a closed kind of pose where you're getting less information about his facial expression. He's like hiding. It's like a beaten dog, you know, goes and hides in a corner or back behind a shed or something. They don't want you to see them. And it's like any of us when we're wounded, you want to hide away from the abrasive world. So that's, again, even in the land of hand posing, you've got open poses and you've got closed poses. Closed poses are less information. Open, you can see. And it's the same with bodies, although I'm not drawing bodies here. But anyway, back to this guy. He could be like, his hands reaching up and he's thinking about, you know, oh, I see it. Or he's like, maybe he's got his hand under like that and he's like, you know, if I just could just think about what to do next. And see, when you look at this, you can almost think about, well, where does that body fill in? You can almost start ghosting in a phantom way where the body is. And that's what you should be aiming for, is a real intuitive feeling for the expression. You can learn a lot more about this simply by using a mirror on yourself. Get a full-length mirror, even I've shown this before in other videos, but even one of these shaving mirrors, you know, and you can get your face reflected or your hands. You can just really learn through these simple means. You can just figure out a lot of stuff. And what you want to do, again, I guess I'm circling around the same topic because I really want to get it across. I'm getting close to 20 minutes here, so I'm going to stop soon. But the thing is, the basic concept is that the elements are what communicate the symbols, and things like proximity and angles when it comes to posing. It's not about figuring out exactly the right fancy line to render or ink. I mean, that's icing on the cake. When you get this working, yeah, if you put a nice rendering line or shadows or Photoshop, airbrush, whatever up the wazoo, if you put that all on top, it can look really good or not, but it can look really good. But it's because the foundation is solid underneath. If you don't have a solid foundation for your posing, it doesn't matter what, or your drawing or your image concept and all the other aspects, if you don't have that solid base, it doesn't matter how much polishing of the proverbial turd you do, it's still a turd, you know, it's not working. So again, here I'm trying to get people to think about, unlock, and find new possibilities by thinking in a very basic way. And I mean, for me, it's just fun on a Saturday. I play around with index cards and cut them out, and you suddenly kind of wake yourself up and push new realizations. So let's finish on a high note. Let's do somber. Let's do severe guy telling you. He's imploring you to try and experiment and throw yourself off your normal way of thinking about stuff. All right. Thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. I've got more to do with this cutout kind of this cutout method I've been doing. I've got lots more ideas about how to show different concepts with drawing. And again, I'm trying to do this non-digitally. It's you could do this with a fancy moving video, but I prefer to do it this way. I really do think there is something to just the craft element of playing around with stuff, doing it really directly, as in what we lovingly call the old non-digital days. Not that I'm against digital, but I think it has to be kept in its right place. All right, thanks for listening, watching, and if you could please like, comment, subscribe, even share this. It's very useful. And last note, I'm very appreciative of everybody that's been subscribing to this channel as it's been growing, and so that's gratifying. I've been getting some great comments and doing my best to catch up on answering or replying to them. All right, bye for now.